This is I Have No Title and I Must Podcast, the show where we discuss any and all aspects of pop culture on our mind at the time. We are your hosts, Tyler
and Chris.
And for anyone that listened to our Asteroid City review and want to get in on what we're talking about, if you haven't seen it yet, they've wasted little time in getting this out. I think it is now available for streaming on Peacock, and depending on when this video goes out, may or may not be released on DVD. So go check that out if you're curious. But for today's episode, we've kind of had this idea rolling around for a little bit, and we touched on it in one of our Wes Anderson videos. I don't remember if it was the review or the main one. It talked about a lot of the actors in there being underrated. So we're going to talk about that today. Actors that we feel are underrated. You want to take the first one?
You're not going to mention what happened at all?
No.
Okay. Well,
no, we're not going to mention that I screwed up the original audio, and this is our second time recording this. No, we're not going to mention that at all.
Then, yeah. All right. So I'd gone home, and now I'm back. And if anybody is wondering why I lack luster, I'm lusterless. All right. Let's see. From my picture-perfect photographic memory, I'm going to recite exactly as I did earlier. It's Mark Hamill. He's the greatest living actor. And on to you. Oh, too little? Okay.
Maybe expand a little bit.
All right. Mark Hamill is my first entry. Mark Hamill, an American actor, born 1937.
Maybe not that much.
Okay. So, underrated actors, Mark Hamill. Yes, it's not necessarily what you'd think I'd say because he is so beloved as Luke Skywalker. Everybody knows him. But just for that, you find me a person on the street you can find just walking down the street and say, hey, do you know who Mark Hamill is? They might say, hey, it sounds familiar. And if you say, Luke Skywalker. Yeah, Luke Skywalker. And then ask him to name a second thing he's done. But here's the thing. He's been a working actor this whole time, mostly in voice acting. He's done a lot of cartoon work, some video game work, some just like audio adventure type work. I think I just said that, and now I'm not 100% sure that's accurate. I mean, I have a special place in my heart for Jack Nicholson as the Joker. But really, when I think of the voice of the Joker, it's Mark Hamill.
Definitely the definitive Joker.
And in the original version of this, I said something about we got robbed having a live action Kevin Conroy as Batman, which I think he did appear in something. Was it a TV? Was it the Flash, like a multiverse Flash thing?
Mark Hamill was in.
No, I mean Kevin Conroy as Batman. Did he make an on-screen appearance before he died?
I don't know. I know that him and Mark Hamill did reprise the voices together for, I think, Arkham or the Arkham games.
Yeah.
And also, I think they did a animated version of The Killing Joke. I think both of them reprised the voice for that.
Oh, it was in the Batwoman show. That was in the Flareoverse. That's That's an amalgamation of the word Flash and Arrow, two prominent DC shows. Kevin Conroy did get to play, but we didn't get to see him opposite Mark Hamill as the Joker. So that's a loss. And also Mark's like 71. At least I think he is. I'm not sure. He is old though. And part of what I said in the previous version is that I feel like our movie industry rewards, and I know this is going to be a shock to everyone listening, our movie industry rewards being pretty. And Mark hasn't been pretty since he was like 20. I mean, a part of it was that accident he was in between the Star Wars films. But even like going into Return of the Jedi, not a bad looking man. I think he's good looking back then, but it's like he made this jump from like 20 to 40 pretty quickly. And that probably did have something to do with it. I don't know. He's not the thinnest guy ever either. That doesn't help. Don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying like what's in front of my face. Lawrence Fishburne is another one who's like, he gained a lot of weight as he got older and he's used less prominently in films. They should be huge movie stars. Those are the people I think should be, because, and I'll get to some other people later, these aren't all of the, I'm not just going to focus on these types of things, but these are things typically wrong with our American film industry, maybe not thespianism as a whole. Broadway probably does still have some issues. I can speak less about that as I know less about that, so I won't at present. But that's my thing. Is Mark happy? Is he a working actor? Does he make plenty of money? Yes. All of those things, yes, I think he would agree to. But I think he should have been the poster boy, the it guy from like 90s, 2000s, and not just used as, some background filler.
Yeah, I will say though, when you do see Mark Hamill performing, he seems to really be enjoying himself.
Yeah.
Because he took this little known villain from The Flash, the trickster. It's The Flash's knockoff of the Joker. And he played it in both the live action 90s Flash, the newer Flash series. But he just seems to be having like a lot of fun with it, just doing whatever. And from all interviews I've seen, he seems to really enjoy the voice acting aspect too. And he claims, at least, so I'll take his word on it, that voice acting was always something that he was interested in and wanted to pursue that.
Well, clearly, I believe it because he's just too good at it. And when you see what he does, other than that Cockknocker and the Joker have a little bit of similarity there if you listen to but I mean, he manipulates his voice, he manipulates his body, he can do a lot of things. I wish there'd been a version of the type of stunt work they have in the prequels for the original ones, because going back, it makes them look like Errol Flynn playing Robin Hood, like kind of 1920s, 1930s sword fighting action. I guess that was part of it, because he wasn't trained properly. That's just always kind of bothered me. I guess some other people too. It's less important. It's not important to the plot, like how good the fights are. Plus, by the end of it, he's holding back because he's trying not to kill his dad. Have you gone yet? Have you said a guy?
No, I'll go.
Okay.
You talked about Mark Hamill maybe not being as big because he's not seen as attractive as other leads. So for my first pick, I'll go with something similar, and that's Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton's beautiful. How dare you speak ill of her?
I'm not saying that she's ugly. I'm saying she's not seen as traditionally attractive. I know she's kind of become this like weird sex symbol now, just because I guess like a chicken cross the road thing. It's like it's not funny, so it's funny. So she's like not conventionally attractive, so that makes her even more attractive.
Well, I mean, just because she looks like an emaciated David Bowie doesn't mean it just. To whom are you? From whom's perspective are you looking at her from? I mean, if it's me, then you gotta know me. But
I want to see her play David Bowie now.
There's no kink shaming here. I feel like she has been low key doing that in some. Plus, she was in that "The Stars Are Out Tonight" music video from his next to last album. Anyway, Tilda Swinton.
But yeah, she's a great act, especially in Jim Jarmusch's No Lovers Left Alive. Like, I enjoyed her character, especially alongside Tom Hiddleston.
The vampire film.
Yes. And she also plays like other weird characters in Jim Jarmusch's stuff, which we didn't really touch on it when we first recorded this. But a lot of my actors that I'm like, oh yeah, they're underrated, I happen to also be in Jim Jarmusch movies. I didn't plan that out, but it happened. But I do think Tilda Swinton has a decent range to her, and I'd love to see her more stuff. She was very well in Suspiria remake, which I don't know if I can recommend that movie. It's a little weird. Not everyone's going to like it, but if you're into that stuff, go check it out for sure. So what's your next pick?
Who was my next pick? I think I said them out of order. I think my next one was Thora Birch. And this one I can't speak with as much authority about. It's just, I love Ghost World so much. It's one of my favorite films, and she was the lead. And that may be like one of her only, which there's so, there's not as many like leading female roles in films, especially like this one. And I think she was pitch perfect. So a while back, I see that she's playing a zombie in The Walking Dead, which I think maybe it lists her in multiple episodes. So I think I didn't watch that show. So I think maybe she'd been a character on the show. I'm not sure how main of a character, but I'm led to believe, unless she's just been a background zombie in a bunch of episodes.
Possibility.
I'm not certain. I could have looked it up, I guess, but I really just don't like zombie stuff. Like, I'm really selective about that. Like, Shaun of the Dead is really up there because Edgar Wright did something different with it. He gave it a plot, and that's something lacking in like 95% of zombie movies. That's right. Come at me. Anyway, I'm saying 95%. There's Shaun of the Dead fits that one of them. Yeah, they're coming for me, brah. So I was worried about her career because I thought, how do you go from American Beauty to this in such a short amount of time? I was looking through her Wikipedia page, and she's been working consistently. She's been on TV, movies since she was pretty young. There's not a whole lot of gaps. So, working actress, but here I feel that there's a certain niche that some people might fall into. There's some people that they do that and it's a bad thing. And there's some people I feel like they miss their mark, and that's the bad thing. Some people do the paycheck movie, not Mel Gibson, but they do the movie that makes them a whole bunch of money, where they do the action scenes, like every movie Tom Cruise does, where it's all just for the money. This is definitely not for the scripts or the acting. It's definitely for jumping off a cliff. Anyway, I feel like some people they belong in indie films. They belong in these smaller stories that tell a little slice of Americana or big city life or what have you. And maybe she just needs to be in more of those. I think she could be a leading actress, well respected. I'm not sure that she's not. But yeah, well, these are the musings of the type of person who would say that Ghost World is one of their favorite films, and I identify with that main character. So, for those of you who've seen that movie, make of that what you will.
Talking that she's been in a bunch of stuff, but not really seen her face. It's like Bob Hoskins. He was in at least one movie a year until he died, but no one really talked about his work after the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you said before, had they made the X-Men movie in the 80s, they wanted him to be Wolverine.
Yeah, Chris Claremont. Chris Claremont's still alive, who prominently, radically re-enlivened the X-Men in the 80s. And there were talks of doing an X-Men movie, which never materialized until the year 2000. But Chris Claremont wanted Bob Hoskins and still talks about it.
When I first heard that, I thought that was a little weird until I seen some pictures of Bob Hoskins when he was a little bit younger. And yeah, he looks just like the comic book Wolverine would have.
Yeah. Which I think with a wig, he probably had thinning hair for a while. With a wig and maybe some prosthetics, some makeup, I think that could have been. Especially if they made it maybe, I don't know, mid-'80s, maybe even early 80s. I don't know what he looked like then. My memory of what he looks like really comes from Roger Rabbit.
Yeah.
And he was in a few things later on, which then shocked me when I found out he's English.
Really?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I don't think I knew that, no.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Which is something, we didn't mention this in the first recording of this, but I'm glad that surprisingly came up this time, because it's something we talked about with other actors later in accents, but I'll save that. Yeah, but look it up. Look him up in an interview. It will blow your mind if all you've seen him in is like him playing Mario and these other, I can't think of other. He was a huge actor, and he kind of he was in a lot of things. We'll call that a de facto pick by you.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't originally my pick. My next pick was originally he's a beloved actor, but I still don't feel he gets the credit he deserves. But my next pick is John Goodman. Everyone knows him from Roseanne. I feel his acting range is so much more. He's good in everything he's in, and I'm always blown away by how no one's really talking about it. And I think I controversially said that his character in The Big Lebowski was potentially a more interesting character than The Big Lebowski.
Yes, and I think I said something like, whoa, you don't want to get political, but you'll say something like that. I would hate to be you in the comments section. That's going to be a debate I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. The Big Lebowski? Whoa. Because, it's like, that's Jeff Bridges, man.
And I love Jeff Bridges too, but...
It doesn't sound like it.
But another thing I want to touch on with John Goodman is no one really mentions it because the sequel to the Blues Brothers wasn't as beloved as the original, but John Goodman can sing, and I think that movie shows it.
Yes, I think I said something about that also, but I cannot remember. Was there something else? I don't want to cut you off. Was there something else you wanted to say? No, we talked for over an hour. Was it over an hour or almost an hour?
Almost an hour. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be 20 minutes.
Well, we need to stop right now then.
Have we already gone 20 minutes?
Just about, yeah.
I'd love for it to be at the 10-minute mark as it gets edited down, and somebody's going to hear the 20-minute bit because you'll forget to edit that out. And they'll be like, did I get Did I hit a time warp? Me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is a guy I really do think is underrated, and it's going to be somebody most people probably won't know, even if I point him out, because he is a foreign actor, but he's been in a lot of American stuff, enough that you would definitely know him. Well, especially our MCU nerds. And it's Gael Garcia Bernal, who most recently, two big things he was in. If you were watching the Werewolf by Night on Disney Plus last October, he is the werewolf by night, the titular werewolf. When he came on screen, I remember saying to my girlfriend, they should have got, you know who they should have got for this? I'm going to try and tell the story like I did earlier, authentically. They should have got the guy. And she was like, I don't know who you're talking about. And I was like, it's that guy. He's in The Science of Sleep. And I looked it up and I was like, Gael Garcia Bernal. And I looked and it's like the most recent thing he's done is Werewolf by Night. And I was like, I didn't get him. Yay. I was right. Somehow. Anyway, he's in one of my other favorite films of all time. Yes, I went personal with this. I just picked movies that I like. Oh, how about that? Somebody with a personal opinion on a podcast. Anyway, The Science of Sleep by Michel Gondry. I'm a huge fan of the director, the French director Michel Gondry. Gael plays kind of a pseudo version of Michel in The Science of Sleep. It's kind of weird to describe that film. But he was in a Shyamalan movie, Old, the beach one where the people get old and that little kid gets pregnant somehow. Bro, weird stuff happens in that movie. And yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff. Been a working actor. Yeah, he's Mexican, so he's been in a lot of Mexican films, probably TV stuff. I mean, I say probably, I can see it right here. I just feel like he doesn't get enough appreciation. And unlike some of the other actors on this list, good looking guy. So no reason not to put him in more stuff. The thing I was going to mention, and this is a criticism on some varied people, and we talked a little bit about this, I think, off air, is the use of accents in things. There are certain foreign actors that just refuse to lose their accents for anything. They just go on. Like, I love Christoph Waltz, but not everybody's evil. Not everybody, and like, come on. I like you, and I want to like you more. Just play it less evil. So there's a certain, like, Javier Bardem, always with this intensity. All the best working American actors, especially superheroes, all English, by the way. Doctor Strange, Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, all that. It's, Christian Bale's Australian, isn't he? I think, maybe. That sounds, he's not American. Anyway.
Hugh Jackman is Australian.
And yeah, Hugh Jackman playing a Canadian, your Batman, Robat Bat. So anyway, I'm just saying, some people could afford to like loosen up and do a different accent. I don't know, but I mean, it goes for Americans too. Some of our biggest movie stars, like say Tom Cruise, did an accent one time. And then he was like, yeah, this acting thing, not for me. Oh, I'm going to keep doing my job, but it's not acting. Trust me. I act crazy for a living. There is one guy though, one foreign actor to America who, which let me look up exactly where he's from. I've heard him do multiple accents, and okay, so his ethnicity is mixed. I didn't know that. He's not technically not on the list, and he was born in Chile, but it's Pedro Pascal. This does it all. Now, he's not technically I don't think he's underrated.
No.
I don't think he's overrated. I think he's getting the proper amount of adulation that he should be. It took him a long time to get there, as he's been working hard for a long time. But now, people love this guy, and for good reason. He does accents, he does action, he does rom-coms, he plays the villain in Wonder Woman, kind of. Anyway.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, he does it all. I think a lot of actors could actually learn something from Pedro. So it was a Chilean American. Anyway, I don't know what I'm doing.
Now, a few more actors I want to touch on is Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson. Both of those well known thanks to the MCU, but I think we could see more from them. Because if you watch them at pretty much anything outside the MCU, they've been pretty good. Because Mark Ruffalo, we get to see a little bit of that in Zodiac and Shutter Island. And with Scarlett Johansson, we see it in Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story, which Adam Driver's another one too. He was also in Marriage Story. a lot of people kind of discredit him a little bit because they're mixed opinions on him from playing Kylo Ren, but he brings like a subtle intensity to all of his roles that I think just really elevate him above some of the others, and I think he needs a little bit more attention from that.
We both forgot about Jojo Rabbit the first recording of this, and yeah, Scarlett Johansson was awesome in that. So was Sam Rockwell. He's another actor I think it's probably the proper amount of praise. I think he is rated. Yeah, I think so. Of course, that's just how I feel about him. I could be wrong. But yeah, that movie was awesome. And Scarlett Johansson, I think, leveled up. I think that was a moment where she had to really push herself and did. And like rose to an occasion.
For sure. And I'd like to see more of those roles come up.
Yeah, that's a really great example. I'm glad you mentioned that this time. This is something I didn't say earlier. I think there's opportunities for people. They're paired with the wrong roles. There's oftentimes, and who can control that? You know, it's like it's a wild world out there. You take what's offered to you. Something I'd mentioned the first time is I wish that Daniel Clowes could write a whole series of graphic novels they would make into movies, and Thora Birch could have an endless career of me getting to watch her play weird, misunderstood girls. I don't know. Okay, so were you doing a twofer there?
Yeah, kind of throwing a twofer.
The other person, I had two more. Did you have two more?
I have at least one more.
Okay. Jason Schwartzman, and I think he has a pretty long list of movies and TV that he has done. He has been consistently working actor and writer, having co-written with Wes Anderson. He's in most of Wes Anderson's stuff. Co-wrote The Darjeeling Limited, I believe. And his first movie, I didn't know this until I looked it up earlier, because I didn't realize. I just assumed he'd been professionally acting since he was pretty young. And he has. But his first major motion picture was Rushmore from Wes Anderson. Now, I know that because I'm a Wes Anderson fan. The reason why I thought that, I just had it in my mind that he'd been working for much longer, is because he was already such a good actor. So I'm assuming he was doing things in high school, middle school. No. Already training for it. But yeah. And, he's the villain in the new Spider-Verse movies with Miles Morales. So, not to say he's not out there, but again, I go back to this. Ask somebody on the street who Jason Schwartzman is. They're not going to know who he is.
That, or they're going to be like, oh, isn't he the one guy from Scott Pilgrim?
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
If you find that guy and you're lucky, yeah. But this guy, again, I'm not worried about his career. He just did Asteroid City, and I didn't believe that was him. It's him in a fake beard playing two roles. And you had some honorable mentions. Didn't you have some honorable mentions?
Yeah, my honorable mentions is one, Robert Pattinson. And the reason he's the honorable mention is because I think he's starting to get that turnaround. But for the longest time, people were just like, oh man, that guy from Twilight. And that's all they thought of him as. And because of those movies, no one wanted to really give him a shot. But now he's just kind of like indie darling. He's starting to come back to bigger pictures now. And my other honorable mention, and the reason she's an honorable mention, is because I've not seen enough to be like, yes, she's underrated. But I'm going to go with Dakota Johnson. I know she gets a lot of stuff thrown at her because she was in the 50 Shades of Grey. Apparently they didn't have good chemistry. And so those movies just weren't great. But after seeing her in Suspiria alongside of Tilda Swinton, I want to see her have more roles like that and see what she can do with it. And then maybe she could be more of a rated star instead of what people think from those movies. But my final real pick, and was the actor that popped in my mind when we first talked about this. That's Paul Dano. I feel that everything he's in, he kills it, or at least that I've seen. I'm sure he might have some flop work somewhere. But he's in There Will Be Blood alongside Daniel Day-Lewis. And everyone talks about Lewis's performance in that movie. But I think the fact that Paul Dano can stand next to him and perform just as well speaks volumes to his amount of work. And we had also talked in like our first episode of the podcast, like our favorite scenes, and you had mentioned the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. And at the time, I hadn't seen it, but if I had, my favorite scene would be the actual scene where Paul Dano's Riddler and the Batman actually get to talk face to face. Because I think that scene out there made the whole movie worth it for me.
Yes. Paul Dano's scary. I think he's probably scary in real life, and because of that, I wouldn't want to meet him.
But we'd also talked about a lot of people kind of discredited Swiss Army Man because of the weird Daniel Radcliffe fart jokes. Paul Dano brought some good emotion to that movie, and his character in Little Miss Sunshine, even though he spends half the movie not talking, when he does finally speak, I think kills it. So yeah, I want to see him in more stuff.
My big honorable mention that I didn't mention until the very, very end because he slipped my mind the first time was Jeffrey Wright, who's one of my favorite actors, and I was furious at myself for forgetting him. He could almost be, I mean, he really should be another entry, honestly, so not necessarily that. I just wanted to make sure to slip him in. I just didn't prepare to talk about him, but from like Muddy Waters, Basquiat, Commissioner Gordon, you know, he's been in action movies, he's been in indie films.
He was Beatty from The Hunger Games.
Yes, he can do it all. He's a real actor's actor, and there's some guys like Willem Dafoe. I don't think it's underrated, but he in more recent years has gotten to really shine. There's some the reason what I wanted to focus on in this are actors who push themselves and act, not method acting. I'm not talking about like if I can only lose some weight or gain some weight or be drunk, I don't know, or what have you. I'm talking about people who practice, rehearse, and try for something different every time. You know who we're talking about when it's the guy who does the same thing in the movie every single time. And then there are people who really go for something real, and sometimes they get made fun of for it. And I think there's a huge double standard. We demand more of our performers, whatever the medium is. But yeah, Jeffrey Wright really brings it every time and has I don't even think there is a range. I think he is the range. And I mean that. I'm not being sarcastic or anything. That's not a joke. I really think there's no role that Jeffrey Wright couldn't do. I think I've written a lot of these actors, like Ian McKellen, I wish they could live for 200 years and look 20 the whole time. We're being deprived. Time, it escapes us. It robs us of things that these actors could be doing. I wish they could clone them. No. I don't wish they could clone them. I don't want to have AIs. I don't want deep fakes. Once these actors are gone, let them lie. It's just missed opportunities. I wish things were different, but they're not. So I hope they continue acting for a good long while because they're only getting better. My actual last pick is somebody who does get made fun of a lot. He's become a bit of a joke, a meme. Anytime anybody mentions Tim Burton, everybody makes this joke. Oh, I wonder who he's going to get to be in his lead. Johnny Depp? Well, joke's on you, because probably not. They don't actually work together all that much, and therein is the other double standard. If we named off a whole bunch of directors the first time, like David Lynch, Wes Anderson, Christopher Nolan, whenever they bring back the same troupe of actors, it's genius. But if Tim Burton wants to do that, it's a joke. He's just gonna make a goofy gothic movie. Not all movies have to be heart attack serious. It's not all just like crashing real planes and exploding real nuclear weapons. Who would have ever thought of doing that? I'm not making fun of that. Do that if you want. Be a method actor if you want, but it doesn't mean you have to come at other people for pushing themselves or trying harder. And I also think people forget that when people think of Johnny Depp, they think of, well, probably Edward Scissorhands is a big one. And that's, I'm not going to say that's not iconic.
Or Jack Sparrow.
They think of Jack Sparrow and they think of the Mad Hatter, which don't look at how much money those movies made either, because somebody was watching them. If it's not you, who was it then? Most likely you did see him. Did you like him? I don't know. I mean, I looked down here and on the list, the one thing I didn't mention the first go round is The Tourist. A bad film. There's also The Astronaut's Wife. A bad film. But I think people forget he played Whitey Bulger in Black Mass. No, people didn't like Transcendence, but Rango is good. People didn't like John Dillinger in Public Enemies, but he's actually played quite a few real people. I listed them off earlier.
Hunter S. Thompson played a couple times.
Yeah, in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and The Rum Diary, quite different versions, different points in his career. And yes, if you go and watch those films, He's not called Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson always wrote his novels in his gonzo journalism style, so he would immerse himself in the story, but he always changed the names. So yes, those two characters are both based on Hunter S. Thompson, and neither of them are named Hunter S. Thompson, and neither of them have the same name either. I mean, just in the past 10 years, he's going to be in something about Napoleon, Louis XV, think Minamata. I think he plays like a photojournalist, and it's based on a book that was based on a real person. And City of Lies, which was about the East Coast, West Coast rap murders. So I'm just saying.
Not to mention What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
What was eating that?
I think that his dad wasn't there, his mom couldn't do anything, and he had to also take care of his brother while trying to live his life.
Okay, well. You know, something I'd said in the first one was Pirates of the Caribbean. Now that I'm much harsher on, I just mentioned all the movies that were bad. I love a lot of these films, but the Pirates of the Caribbean films, the last one, a lot of the original cast did not come back. And I think they had a script. They probably had to scrap a lot of it or change. You can tell there's certain actors in there that were like meant for the original cast, and they just reskinned them, you know. In it looks like he's phoning in his performance, and he's looking right through the camera. Like, he's dead behind the eyes. He's not really there. It's because his life was falling apart, as the world would find out in public hearings. His mom was dying and died, and allegedly some woman was trying to kill him in multiple times and ways. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So I don't think a lot of people realize how many films this guy's actually been in.
I think the recent court hearings and his popularity as Jack Sparrow has kind of overshadowed the rest of his career.
Which I don't even, like some of those Pirates movies were actually good, like family films. It's, action comedies. I would rather see that than whatever new exactly the same thing as the last thing that Tom Cruise put out, whether it's like cult propaganda or not. I don't know. I haven't seen them. And I don't think that it requires as much to like just be yourself but louder. Mm-hmm. Be yourself but quieter. Be yourself but loving. Whereas if you look through these and say like, which one of these was Johnny Depp playing himself? Was it Once Upon a Time in Mexico, From Hell, Blow, where he was actually playing another real person? And he does accents too. Like, that's something that a lot of actors will stray away from when they're afraid to do it. He was also one of the only Americans that worked, I think maybe the only American that worked on a Harry Potter production as an actor. That was something they really didn't want in the original Harry Potter films, the original 8. And they talked about him and said, we're going to bring this guy in as an American playing something other than Americans, because the new ones are set partially in America. Guys, I saw them. I don't at me on this one. I know there were other, but an American playing an Englishman or Scotsman or Irish person generally. So yeah, they all agreed like his accent's actually good. Anyway, this can be debated. This is for the thespians to debate amongst themselves. I'm just out here saying I think that a person who puts a lot of hard work into their craft doesn't have to go method to push their acting abilities. Not that I have that much against it. That's a whole separate debate or conversation. It's acting. What did you say about Ian McKellen? We were talking about Ian McKellen off the camera. What does he say? I am
pretending.
Yeah.
It's like he's not actually a wizard.
It's acting. I love the old John Lovett. Whenever somebody lies and my girlfriend says something about it, I always pull out the old John Lovitz from Saturday Night Live when he's acting. I think whether you've liked him or hated him, you cannot deny the amount of work he's put in, and he has not been the same person twice on film. There's a few phone-in roles, and there's a few roles where he's just playing a regular guy, but and kind of himself. I'll put that in there. But I think in the first one, I don't think I said in this one, he's taken, like in Benny and June, he played that one mostly silent. There's a lot of Edward Scissorhands is mostly silent. There's probably a few other roles I'm forgetting where he really leans back on his physical and facial acting. He learned a lot just from watching other actors, mostly I think from the silent film era. Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. I want to see him return back to his former glory. I would like to see a few good roles. I think he's just sinking into some, Minamata, the Barbarians movie. There's something about Napoleon coming out. He played another Louis XV. I think I mentioned that. He's listed as being contractually connected to playing Gomez in some version of the Addams Family. I didn't look any further into this, and I hadn't really heard anything about it, but there it is on Wikipedia.
Is it one of the animated?
Maybe. But they already have 2 animated ones, so this might be yet another reboot. I don't know if it's connected. It would be weird because Tim Burton's doing the Netflix ones with, so it's odd. I think a lot of people remember those Addams Family movies from the 90s and think that Tim Burton did them as they were in, it seems like it would be perfect for him, but I don't think he had anything to do with them. Anyway, that's for the directors list. We ended up mentioning quite a few directors that go hand in hand with a lot of these actors. That's a whole different list for a whole different day. But yeah, and I mean, we could go on and there's a dozen more.
Yeah, I'm sure actors. At some point we'll have a part 2 to this. But for now, I think we'll wrap up there. If you've made it with us this far, thank you. Seriously, as we've mentioned, we've messed recording up, so this is a little rushed. So thank you for staying with us. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know who you think is an underrated actor. And a special thanks to Chase. We'll have links for him in the comments below. And also follow us on our social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We'll have links for those as well. And until next time, see you.